Hi, hello. So, this is gonna be like a volbiv guide to Colombia. And basically, well, Colombia is a big country, so this is just the valley, the Cauca Valley, Valle de Cauca. So just one region, the pretty well-known one where Roldanillo, Piedrechincha, San Manuel is, and then everything else up to north to Santa Fe. So we will start with why go want why to go there. Then we will discuss a little bit terrain and the dangers that are there. Also some basic meteorological stuff that you need for planning, basically El Nino and El Pacifico. Um, and then I will show you some photos and show you a little bit how it is. So the focus is gonna be on the dangers that are involved in this place, because it's not without dangers. There are some, and yeah, that's why actually I do this, because it's a beautiful place, it's a good adventure, but you need to understand some things before you go there. Okay, so starting with why do you really want to fly in Colombia? And now if you look on this graph that shows you mean number of flyable days per week over 10 years, basically last 10 years, over the different dates, then you see that basically Colombia and Valle de Cauca, Roldanillo, Piedrechincha, San Nuevo, the biggest takeoffs there, is the number one in the world, basically, from where you can consistently fly in the period of January till beginning of March, let's say. And this is actually the only place in the world where people fly over 5 days per week here in February, basically. In average, of course. So this is like over 10 years. So this is the reason you go there, and basically you almost have like guaranteed weather. It's not always the case. We will discuss it in a moment, depending on El Nino, La Nina, a little bit. But yeah, but this is actually a pretty crazy place to fly. From the weather, it's just perfect weather many days. And as you see, actually Colombia, it starts like middle of December slowly, and then you have, let's say, the best weather in average you have between mid January and the beginning of March, basically, and then it goes down. It's start getting, then later I think it's starting to get wet. So now a little bit the terrain. So South America, and this is Colombia, a huge country, and we are only talking about this area here. This is the Valle de Cauca, the Cauca Valley. So this the river actually flows through this between the mountains, and this is basically the main paragliding spot in Colombia. There are also some people flying a little bit on this ridge on the other side, and somewhere around here Bogota, but far less than in the Valle de Cauca, basically. And yeah, so this is the big picture. Now let's move to the more detailed one. So you have here the Valle de Cauca, here is Cali, and here is Santa Fe. So basically, probably 99% of people coming here, they fly into places, basically. The one is Piedrechincha, it's near to Palmira, it's basically here on this side, and the other one is Roldanillo, which is a little bit more to the north. And very few actually go here, um, which makes it much more wilder. Some people fly around Jericho, Jardín, Anselmo Nuevo. Anselmo Nuevo is this Apia should be around somewhere here. Anselmo Nuevo and then Apia. Jericho is another place where it's this mountain here, this ridge is pretty beautiful. Then this area is difficult because there's few places actually where you can land. The valley is very narrow, and then you get to, so I didn't fly there, so I don't know, but I believe this may be difficult because there's a lot of forest hills and few flat spots, few roads basically. And then again, Santa Fe, you have an area where you can have a bit more open space, but it's just a very small area here. Maybe it's like 40 kilometers, something like this, 40 kilometers. And then again, the valley gets very narrow, and this is actually where people don't fly anymore. Probably if the buzz would be really high, then you could try to fly there, but yeah, but be careful. There was actually one guy who disappeared. There was a competition in Santa Fe, and he outlanded somewhere, and yeah, and never. He called to say that he's on his way back, and then never. He was been never seen again and heard. So already it gives you an idea about the difficulty here. That this is yeah, the terrain is, this is mountain, and not the mountain that you know from Europe, because there were never glaciers here. So it's a very different mountain, very difficult actually to move. We will see it a little bit later. But this area here, Valle de Cauca, the southern part, so to say, you have a huge flat space, so you can actually fly on the ridge of the mountain and over the flat space, and on the other side over the flats. And basically you have tons of space to land, and there's a lot of communication. There's even this Panamericana, the main highway in South America, going directly here. This is this road. Here probably. This one is actually the main road in South America, so there's tons of traffic there. But again, due to the safety reason that we will discuss a little bit in a moment, yeah, the hitchhiking doesn't really work here, so because people don't stop, they are too afraid to stop. But there are many buses, and if you know where to stop them, then you can ride by bus. But it's a bit tricky. So we already touched a little bit the elements of security actually here. This is a very important topic. I will discuss it in more detail in a moment, but just to give you an idea what are we talking about. So again, Valle de Cauca, the Cauca River is here, flows here a little bit like this, and this area Ujerico, there are people flying here. It's pretty cool, very beautiful actually. Here you can fly, but this area is difficult because there are very few outlanding spots here, or maybe there are none at all. I didn't fly there because of that. It's just a very narrow valley full of trees. So something to discover more maybe one day. Anyway, so we discussed, okay, here I prepared the safety. So maybe just to give you an idea, this mountain is really difficult to access. And it's not only difficult to access if you land somewhere on the paraglider, but also if you are a police. And there is a lot of drug trafficking and drug production. You know, coca. Probably heard about this. It's been a big problem for many years, tens of years basically. So the social, you know, relations here, they are already pretty disturbed. Like yeah, people actually who have money, who have land, those are the guys who sell drugs, who produce and sell drugs, and they also control huge areas basically. And being more precise, so there's like there are cartels actually. So there's a crime related to guys, you know, fighting for control of drugs. This I haven't heard so much. There is violence due to the guys who are addicted to drugs. There are places where there are many people addicted to drugs, and you know, and this is there are violent crimes because of that. What happens? The area to being more concrete is actually here. We will see this next slide a little bit more detail, but more or less south of Cali, Palmyra. Here, if you go a little bit south, Pradera is probably still okay, but Florida is already no-go zone. There are many places like this where there are many drug addicts. But also around Buga there are some zones, I heard, Tulua, so there are those places there in the main valley actually. There are many of those places. So those people actually, what they do is just to give you an idea, the stories I've heard is you ride on the motorcycle, they shoot at you, they kill you, and they check if you have anything they can steal from you. So basically this is the modus operandi in this area. So you have to really take this into account. It's a dangerous place in general. The violence level and the value of human life here is pretty different than what we know from other places. But still, there are extremely many paragliding pilots flying here between basically Palmira, north of Palmira and Roldanillo, so in this zone. And there is very little crime actually. So we've only heard about guys being corrupt. Last year there was one guy who got like, you know, who was really like attacked with a machete. But he was lucky and he survived. Some other on the road basically, so a bus driver stopped and helped him. There were actually 5 guys riding bicycle who stopped, and one hit him with a machete. It's pretty crazy shit, yeah. But taking into account how many people fly there, and just to give you an idea, Roldanillo in January there are 500 starts per day just from one takeoff. Zone basically. There are few takeoffs, but from this zone, Roldanillo. So there are many people flying, and it's very rare that something happens to someone due to this. But between Palmira and Roldanillo, this is where most of those people fly. So this seems to be pretty okay. I already started to talk that actually it's difficult. The mountain is difficult to access, which basically means that if you go out of the main valley, you go either to the mountain, left or right. Yeah, this is much less safe than in the valley, because here is more or less controlled by the military, by the police, the zone to Palmira. But if you go into the mountain, it's a different story. You will have guerrilla, so like a local, I would say, like, yeah, like insurgents, we would almost say. In the mountain, they're frequent in many of those places. I've been actually just to few, but I heard from people that guerrillas are coming in the night, and they're patrolling these areas. On this side, I also heard one guy who went to the other. He was stopped by the guerrillas, and they checked his documents. Like you know, they control basically those areas. So if you stay in the main valley, it's relatively safe. But if you go to the mountain, yeah, then it's not the police, it's the guerrilla basically that's controlling this. And if you go someplace where there are drug addicts, or you know, or drug cartels, then yeah, then it's another story yet. Okay, so stay in the main valley basically. This is the advice. And even if you move just a little bit, so for example Trujillo, somewhere here there are small valleys coming here. So I heard already a few kilometers inside of those valleys there are already places that are pretty sketchy regarding the safety. I heard that from locals. Yeah, in the north, I don't know so much. I was traveling here just for a few days, flying and advancing. I haven't seen anything sketchy, but just too little time, and I didn't speak too much with people. Hard to say. But now we will have a focus on this south here. So Cali, basically this is the airport. So most people come to this region through the Cali airport, which is actually here. And you have to be really careful, because this is the airport, and just south of the airport is the no-go zone basically. So the Piedechinche takeoff is a little bit here, and 15 kilometers south of the takeoff there are other takes off here. There is one, I forgot the name, but the one south is like 10 kilometers south of Pietrzyce. This is still okay, but anything south of that is dangerous, because there's yeah, basically there's little rule of law. The police does not enter here, or if they enter, they fight with the bad guys basically. So the risk of the crime is high, drug addicts out of control for the police. So the many locals told me just don't go there. And wherever you go, actually, I suggest that you discuss it with the locals, so they tell you. Because even in Palmyra, for example, you are on one place, for example, it's a big shopping mall and many people, everything. You go 300 meters away to you cross the street and you get in the zone where the chance of getting robbed is extremely high. So I really strongly recommend that that you discuss with locals before you go somewhere. You ask them if they what they think about this, because you might get surprised basically. I was surprised quite a bit about this. Okay, so we discussed a little bit the general safety in this area. It's not a joke. It's really like it's a beautiful place, but yeah, it's the value of human life is much less actually than what it is in many other places. So now, regarding to when to come, so you already seen this beginning of the year, but there's another very important factor that depends on that actually that impacts the weather in Colombia, because Colombia is here, as you see, and you basically have this phenomenon El Nino and La Nina. So it's all around the wind actually. So normally the trade winds that are blowing from east to west, and this is a case of a La Nina when the winds are really strong, and then you get cold air basically like being moved. Actually, sorry, and then you get actually this winds, they move the surface of the ocean, and they pick up the cold water from the depths if this is La Nina. And if there is no wind, then you have El Nino system, and basically you have warm ocean around here. And the result is that if you have El Nino, then you have the warm ocean as you see here, and the dry air is going down. It's like a really nice weather for flying. We had the case like in 2024, that was 1 year, as you will see in a moment, with a very strong El Nino, and it was just every day was perfect. The conditions were very strong. There were many people showing rescue parachutes because the conditions were so good. So this is El Nino, and La Nina is a different story. So 2025 was La Nina, basically, like in January. January was the beginning of January was very humid and cold. So the second half of January was very nice weather, so warm and dry and perfect flying weather every day. But then again in February it was very cold and humid. So, and this was a weak La Nina, as you see here. So in order to get an idea where you are with this, actually they measure ocean temperature, and there is something like Oceanic Nino Index, ONI, and basically this shows you this. So if the value is positive, you have El Nino, and this is perfect paragliding weather. And you have a negative value of this index, then you have La Nina, and yeah, and then the chances for the weather is not so nice are much bigger. Of course, it's all statistics, but this is an important factor. If you see here positive values, and the limit is somewhere around half. So this is 2, this is 1, so half would be somewhere around here basically. That makes the difference, that it already classifies to one or the other. So if you see the plus like this, you know you have to really go there and fly, because it's gonna be like 2 months of crazy flying. And if you see the negative values here, then yeah, maybe reconsider. I mean, there's still gonna be a lot of good flying, but yeah, I mean, yeah, we had like 2 weeks of really good flying in 2025. Okay, so we discussed the safety on the ground, the weather, big factors. A bit more detailed factor on the weather still is that you have this Pacific wind, and this actually wind coming from the east in the afternoon, and this wind actually goes through the mountain then drops. It's like a fan, so very strong wind, and it already flows on the mountain, which basically means that you have it at the low altitudes close to the relief basically. So you may be, and it starts in the afternoon around 12 p.m. local time. So what may happen is you can detect it if you look very far to the west. You will see the clouds are gonna be drowned down on some other ridges farther to the west, and this indicates that that the Pacifico, that the wind is already blowing, and it's a very important factor to consider, because you may be above the mountain high and you won't feel the wind, and once you get closer to the relief you are on the lee side and you're gonna be really like flashed down pretty aggressively basically in the turbulent air, flash down yeah, the mountain basically. So you have to be really aware of that. And the other aspect is it's getting stronger later in the day, so you may fly somewhere else, and of course, so you may fly on the other. So basically, what people do is they fly here around noon when they see the Pacifico is coming. And well, I mean, if they stay high, it's still okay. But if they are not high enough for any reason, then they go to the other side of the valley, basically, or they fly over the valley and they go to the other side. This is basically what typically people do here in the area between Piedechinche and Serma Nueva, basically. This is where most people fly. This is basically how it looks here. A bit to the north, it's basically similar thing, but in the detail I won't tell you because I have flown only once here in some spots, so I don't know. But here basically this is what happens, that people fly to the other side, and then in the evening they come back. And basically you have to be really careful, because there have been some serious accidents where people were coming back and everything was nice, they were advancing, and in the last 300 meters above the ground they are like in the 50 kilometers wind. And so basically you may fly, advance, everything nice. Once you get low, and the closer you get, so the lower you get, the stronger the wind, and the closer to the mountain you get, the stronger the wind. So that's why it's advisable that if you come on the other side, you don't really push to land back in the Roldanillo, which is very close to the mountain, because then you may have like 50 kilometers per hour wind. Basically you may land backwards, and if there are some power lines, and there are many in Colombia, then yeah, then you may actually land on the power lines. And there have been accidents like this where people were trying to land in Roldanillo, and then flying backwards, they were actually not looking behind. They were pushed towards some some power lines and got burned seriously. So take care of that wind. This wind is no joke. It's really strong if you get closer to the mountain and very low. And those are just last few hundred meters, last 300, 400 meters above the ground. And over this you won't really feel this wind. So you have to be ready for this wind. Okay, so Pacifico, El Niño, La Niña, those are basically the most important weather elements that you have to understand. And now the airspace. So Cali and this airport that we already discussed, this is a city air of this airport. This is like the major communication airport, basically, where you have international flights, maybe national flights. I'm not sure this is an international airport actually, but anyway, you have flights coming from many places. There's pretty lot of traffic. It's a big airport, and so you have city air, and then you have TMA, basically sea controlled airspace, basically in the valley. which means and there are also those green corridors. Those green corridors are made for paragliders. So those are zones where actually, yeah, you are allowed to fly, or they are actually, yeah, made for flying in paragliders, basically. So you can fly here in this airspace, which basically means that flying around here, so Palmyra, this is Piedachincha. Basically, if you go cross country, it's basically impossible to go cross country without violating the airspace from Piedachincha, because it's made this way that you won't cross the ridge here. It's too far in the valley, and yeah. So basically, this is the problem with Piedachincha airspace around here. If you go fly from Roldanillo, then you make do like 200 kilometers FIE triangles, still respecting the airspace. It's a bit tricky, and you really have to check, because in some places it seems that you cannot go make this triangle, but it turns out that there are some slots in the altitude between the airspaces, and you can fly still over the restricted airspace or between the restricted airspaces. So you have to take this into account. There are also some military training airspaces here, and there is another airport here and CTR, and there is a helicopter base, I think around Turua. There is quite a lot of things going on here. It's a major it's for Colombia, it's a major population center here. And this is all canalized in this valley, so yeah, there are some few small airports also, like a civilian for small aircraft and stuff like this. So yeah, you have to really understand the airspace, study it so that you know what altitude you can fly, and yeah, and I suggest that you don't violate it. Although many people do, but yeah, but you shouldn't. So this is the end, and the main part is you have to understand that CTR here is because this zone here is here because the airplanes are really taking off here and they fly this line. So if in some twist of your mind you decide to fly in this area, this is just this suicide, because if you fly here you may have a pretty high chance of having an airplane like flying directly here, like taking off. So take this into account, and don't do this. Don't fly in the airspace. Don't violate the airspace. Okay. So now what do we have? The more detailed. And I want to say, and the advantage of going here, the north, is that you don't have this airspace. You are finally free. Then this is huge mountain. You can fly really high here on the nice days, and it's pretty cool. But it's more difficult because the valley is not so wide, so it's more difficult terrain, and there are also much less people than in the Valle de Cauca. So if something happens, yeah, it's not so. It's much more dangerous, so to say. This is a bit more detailed view on those airspaces, but I think I discussed everything. So Piedachincha, El Pomo. This is the one takeoff, Piedachincha, and Roldanillo is the second one here. So Roldanillo, you can actually fly without violating the airspace. Okay, so if you have a La Nina, you get this type of weather, humid, cold, low bases. But I think this is general. The weather in this area, from what I heard, is all general like this, that you have low bases over this. So if you go fly there, you always have to have a compass with you, like a bussola, just in case you're gonna be sucked into the cloud. Take into account that the terrain is pretty close, so you have to be able to reliably keep the direction to fly out of the cloud in the free area. Because if you stay here for some time, it's almost certain that you will get in this situation. This is on a bit better day, but This is on the side of the eastern side of the valley. So basically the sun, this is the Piedechinche side of the valley, so to say, and a bit further to the north. So the problem here is that this area was, when I was here, it was very stable air basically. So the sun is actually coming here and starting to shine pretty late in the day on this side. That's why Roldanillo is much better, because you have the sun from the very early in the morning, and actually at 9 a.m. even before you can already take off and have nice thermals. That's why it's for cross country it's much better, the Roldanillo than Piedechinche, besides the airspace and everything else. In Piedechinche it starts the earliest at 10, so on this side of the valley, and actually it really starts around 11, 12. And then there's, I mean, at least the moment where I was there with this La Nina shitty weather, there was, it was overdeveloping in the sense maybe not it was stormy, there were some days, but also it was just covered with clouds, everything here, so in the shadow, and actually like at 2 p.m. it was already over, kind of like on many days. So this is the disadvantage of flying on this side of the valley. As always, you use moto taxis. This I forgot the name of this one. So Tiri Tiri, I think, something like this. And then you also have normal taxis and buses. Buses are very reliable, and they go to many places in the Valley of Cauca. So actually you get everywhere with the bus. You just need to get somehow to the nearest small town, and then there you will have the bus basically. So this is a very reliable way of going there, and actually it's the only almost that you can do, because in the valley where you have a lot of traffic, the people, they on the main road, the Pacifica people, they don't stop, they are just afraid, and their hitchhiking doesn't work there. On a smaller road somewhere then it's better, but still the hitchhiking is pretty poor in Colombia, I mean in this area, because people are really scared. There is a lot of violence. Although I mean, if white guy with a black backpack is maybe not, but yeah, but there's still something like this. Yeah, on the better days, it looks very nice and it really works really nice. And the big advantage of flying there is that there are, especially in the area around Rio de Janeiro, there are many people flying. Like as I told you, over 500 pilots per day taking off. So it's a little bit like a competition. You can observe other pilots, what they are doing, what lines they are choosing, and you can learn a lot from this. This is one of the takeoffs in Roldanillo on a bit worse weather. So the takeoff is Bella Vista. There's a hotel behind, very nice owner, and Carlos is a really nice guy, and he's very helpful to all paragliding pilot. It's actually his plantation of bananas, and that he actually cut off the trees to make space for the takeoff, and also is cutting those trees below to make it bigger, and so that you have more space for the takeoff. And he's bringing free bananas, and it's just such a very nice person, very helpful. This shows you a little bit the terrain that I mentioned. Terrain is very difficult here, and it's very different than in Europe. And I believe because there are no glaciers here, probably. So what happens here is that the water goes down and it creates those it's almost like crevasses. It's so steep, those holes, those small valleys, actually here cross valleys, and also those in the middle. They are so steep that basically this is full wilderness. There's no way to cross them. So this is just jungle there. So there's no way to cross it. Basically, those places here, don't cross them here. Like going in this direction, you won't be able to cross. If you go down, it's gonna be the same. So you won't be able to cross down there in most cases. So basically the only solution is to, if you land a place like this, the only solution is actually to go up using I used Google Maps. There were those pretty good, you buy, when you go there, you buy yourself a Claro SIM with prepaid, and then you have internet many places around here, and then you can check it, or you watch all those places in Google Maps before, so that you can access those photos, I mean satellite photos, so you can access them later offline, because once you've seen them online, they stay in your phone, on your phone. So basically, if you have a look on satellite photo, then you can choose a path, you go up, and there all the roads, they are actually on the top, or not all, but most of them, because those cross valleys, impossible to pass, and down in the valleys very often also impossible to pass, because they're very steep and a lot of vegetation. It's pretty crazy. I'm just to tell you, I landed twice in a place that I landed near a road. I've seen the road. In one case I was like 200 meters, I think, and the other 500 meters away from the road, and it took me something like 1-2 hours to get to this road, those few hundred meters, and I had to go really up above, and then yeah, it's just that was just and I was only able to do this because I had like satellite photos, because I used like OpenStreetMaps, but they won't show you those crevices basically. A little bit, if you look on the vegetation, if you see that there is a lot of vegetation on the map, it's probably to do the crevasse, so that you're not in most cases. There are some that there are small trails going through those, and you can pass, but from what I've seen a little bit only, but from what I've seen, there are many that you are not able to pass. So yeah, this is the big difficulty, because imagine you land a place like this, and you have little water, it's hot, sunny, yeah, and you need few hours to get somewhere, maybe climb up, yeah, so you always have a lot of water with you, but so we don't know how actually what has happened to the pilot that disappeared last year, but I can very easily imagine that yeah, he could get head lost or something like this, just in this terrain. And the water to find, there is some water in those crevices, but it's relatively dry. Most of those places, they are pretty dry. And other aspect that you don't see here are power lines. The power lines are everywhere, and sometimes there are those big power lines that go in the valley that are famous here in Valle de Cauca, Roldanillo, but those are easily visible, so that's not a problem. But there are sometimes they are really going from one side of the small valley to the other, or even through the big part in the valley, like hanging over 300 meters or 400 meters, like single cables. So it has happened to me once. I was landing on a slope like this, and it was only after I landed I just noticed that I flew just next to a cable like this, crossing the valley. This is very dangerous, so be aware of those cables. So terrain, cables, and actually the people, in a sense, there are many very friendly people around there. I met people that are like brothers, that were like brothers to me, like my own family, or even better, some of them. Um, but there are some also stories and cases that that there are people actually who don't value like human life. So, but I haven't met those, luckily. In this photo, actually, you see I don't actually know what it is, but it's like a tree with the spikes, and those spikes, they are massive. So in case you land in the bushes, there's really like huge risk that you injure yourself, because those spikes, they are really massive things. They would cut through your flesh, no problem. So just take it into account before flying through any bushes. This is one aspect of this photo, and the other, just to give you an idea how thick this is in those areas where it goes steep down. So basically what happens, this is one of those crevasses. It goes steep down there, pretty deep, and it's impossible to pass because it's almost vertical, those things. This is crazy. So be aware of that difficult terrain. And yeah, and this is again what I meant, down of the valley here, impossible to pass. It's so steep and it's just plants down there. So basically the roads really, I mean, there are some exceptions of this. Sometimes the roads go a little bit on the side, but if terrain is really difficult, they tend to go on the top. It's much easier to find the road on the top than in the bottom of those hills. Just that you understand this, in case you outland somewhere here. And again, La Nina. So this is basically how 1 month and a half looked like 2025. Yeah, shitty weather, a lot of rain, but very great people and bananas. And in general, food is really good. And I can really recommend that if you are in Roldanillo, that you stay at this Bella Vista hostel. It's Finca Bella Vista, because there is like they also make like a great food, and so it's a really nice place. And to get to this, if you are in Roldanillo, you get from the Roldanillo here to the takeoff for Bella Vista, you take a bus. You tell the driver you go to Bella Vista and he will drop you out. Or the other takeoff is Aquapanela. But the Aquapanela, I mean, there are like 4 takeoffs altogether. Some of them are lower. This, for example, here, this power mast. Those are good if the cloud base is really low, if you have like a humid cold days. So it's those takes off maybe in the cloud, so it may be rainy already. And here you can take off. This is a bit lower. And if you go up, the main is to the left of this is Aquapanela. Aquapanela is most of those 500 pilots they are there, so it's pretty busy, a lot of stress. 2025 there was one girl who took off from that place without having closed her harness and she died. And I believe that maybe the fact that it's so busy, this place, and so much rush, maybe it was also a contributing factor to that. But it's a large takeoff and it's easy takeoff. If you come here and to take off from here, it's much smaller. It goes much steeper down, and there is like banana trees. I mean, they're beating cat and cat to it every day, but it's easier to fly into those bananas. And actually, there were many cases that people were landing here, because it's pretty tricky here in the sense that if you have nice thermal wind up, there's no problem. But sometimes this wind changes actually, and you feel that it's like no wind or a little bit up, but once you take off, actually you go down pretty quickly. So it means that you don't really have, this up wind, and maybe there's just in front of the hill a little bit, there's like a bit of air going down. So this has happened to many people there. I mean, not many, but few people. And I went through the banana leaves like twice, and there were some guys who were a bit less lucky and they really landed in the trees. I mean, it's not really, those are pretty elastic, so it's not, so there were no injuries, but still. And once you take off from here, you have to clear the space, so you have to fly to the Aquapanela basically and beyond to clear the power lines. And this is further distance, so it's less easy to do from Bella Vista than from Aquapanela. So from this point of view, it's less beginner friendly, although it's much calmer and it's close to Bella Vista, so much nicer everything. But it's less beginner friendly basically, like than the Aquapanela. There were some overdevelopments. This is a little bit to the north, I believe. So you fly in a place like, so you don't have this wide Cauca Valley, you have like more narrow spaces. So basically there's hills everywhere. It's not so easy to walk, and there are less roads, but it's very beautiful. And there are still some people around, and you get to civilization. But water may be a problem, for example, because actually I was there. I remember someone shared with me some water, but they were already sharing their last water almost. So you have to take it into account. Those places are more remote. And as I said, the Cauca Valley is more to the north. So this valley gets narrow, and you have the mountain left, right, and here you still have some spaces without the vegetation and not so steep. But if you go a bit farther to the north, I mean, those are areas where it gets really steep. And Cauca Valley, there are few bridges also over the Cauca Valley. So if you land on the wrong spot, yeah, getting to the road, and the main road is basically most of the time is this on the east side of the west side of the on the west side of the Cauca Valley, and the east side is much wider basically. So if you land on the east side, yeah, it may be really tricky to get somewhere. Yeah, this is basically north from Apia. Basically, if you go north from that place, this is how it is. This is, I think, La Union, I believe. So it's a bit north from um, a bit north from Roldanillo. On the wet weather, you see this earth is very muddy. It's very difficult to walk in this. Again, La Nina period. And a little bit about food. So they have really great food. They eat a lot of those fejillones, which is basically like red beans, rice, and in this case, this is not a normal food in there. I mean, it's like a expensive food because this you have like a schnitzel, like actually like in Europe, but it's much better than in Europe. Then some soup, and this is aqua panela, the drink. So this is like sugarcane extract, you would say. It's basically like sugar from the cane, but it's a brown mass that they mix with water. So it's like sugar mixed with water and citron, lemon. Very nice, refreshing drink, and you can get it to many places. The poor people in Colombia, they don't eat like this. Basically, they eat like corn cooked with water, basically, kind of like. So it's a very different story. But this is also something that it's very it gives you energy for sure. So in case you land some remote place, you can still I forgot the name of this, but you can still survive pretty well on this. Yeah, but the people are very generous there and very invited. Yeah, it's just sometimes it's heartbreaking actually how generous they are, taking into account the conditions they live in. And another big, I mean, I'm a big chocolate drink fan, and actually, from this point of view, Colombia, this region is like paradise because you can get it everywhere. You go to like this is a panaderia, I think. This is basically where they sell bread, and they sell a lot of different types of bread, stuff with different stuff. And also then they give you like a chocolate. I mean, they can order chocolate drinks, and it's really cool. But very sweet. So this is a bit problem there that yeah, that they eat very sweet. Yeah, everything is like sweet, not good for your health. Okay. So summing up, this is the Finca Hostal Bella Vista, Roldanillo you get the bus from that station, you go with the bus here, and then you can stay here and take off, or you can move a little bit to Aquapanela. This is the main takeoff here, and you can stay in this hostel. Very great food, great view from on both sides, so Roldanillo side but also the other side. This is just a perfect place, and very friendly staff. So I can only recommend that you stay in this place. And as you see, the note is also 4.9. It's an extraordinary place. Carlos is the owner, and he takes care of everything. He's like a father basically for you there. It's yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I believe that I touched everything, that I haven't forget nothing. So summing up, the first thing was the safety. The terrain is difficult, and because of this, the safety outside of the main valley and in the south of the valley, it's an issue. The north, they say less so. I cannot say. I spent a little bit too little time there. The general flying goes way beyond that. There are many takeoff that go way beyond the the Anserma Nuevo, which is basically the northern point for most of the pilots flying between Anserma Nuevo and Piedechincha. You can fly more to the north, and this is very beautiful, like Jerico, for example. There are many beautiful places. Santa Fe, the same. The problem, it gets more remote, and the terrain is you don't have this wide valley, so it gets more difficult to get somewhere. But this is also a bit makes it more the adventure, because it's much more impressive if you fly over this huge mountain, on this huge river, and in this very but it seems to be a remote area. Although this highway goes also there, it follows the river, but yeah, it's much more adventure, because here is just there are so many pilots. It doesn't feel so adventure. It feels like, but if you go to the north, it's more tricky, probably, maybe more dangerous, I don't know. Tricky terrain, but much more adventure, and you can actually do it there. This is pretty cool. So El Nino, La Nina, you check this, because if this is La Nina, then you will have a good chance of humid time there. If it gets El Nino, then it's gonna be great, or maybe even the conditions are gonna be really strong. I mentioned power lines, difficult terrain also. Yeah, and otherwise, I mean, people you have to also, but I mentioned also this part. And otherwise, nice temperatures. Oh, and the mosquitoes. I forgot. If you are low in the valley, you will get and you will get yeah, you will meet many mosquitoes, especially around Piedechincha there in the south. It's pretty crazy. So you always have against the mosquitoes, you need to wear like long sleeves clothes, but light color, not black. And then you also buy yourself like a spray against the mosquitoes, because in this area it's not really the case. But I know someone actually who got yellow fever actually around this. So if you are really unlucky, although this is not common in this area, but if you get really unlucky, you may get really sick, and those fevers, they may kill you. And also you can how you call it? There are also like vaccines for yellow fever that you should also do to reduce the risk of that. So mosquitoes, and this is I mean, mosquitoes just picking you in Piedechincha, it's gonna be horrific. Roldanillo, if you stay above, if you stay up, it's not such a big issue. And actually, if there is a lot of wind, and then Roldanillo will have wind, it's less an issue. If there is less wind, then you will feel it more. And this is probably the reason why Piedechincha there are so much more annoying, those mosquitoes there in the Roldanillo, because the Roldanillo they aren't really annoying. Yeah, so this is probably it. And if I forgot something, then I will make another video. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, then I will answer them either in the comments or in another video. And yeah, and feel free to go and fly in Colombia. There's this really like a unique place where you can fly so much if the weather is nice. Yeah, this is just a very nice place to fly. So subscribe, and as always, see you watching another video. The other is will be about volbiving in the Alps. There is just a small problem because I wanted to do this little bit based on like weather maps, but I somehow forgot to make it so that you have like a summer weather. So, but I will try to prepare it anyway. So this is gonna come soon. If you want to see it, then don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet, and hit notification to be notified about this. Yeah, and thank you for your attention, and have a nice day.